welcome to Build Proportion Lab at DP Summit 2024 in San Francisco. And that's a second year in a row we do the Build Proportion Lab in DP Summit. That's very exciting. My first guest of the conference of those 2 days is Ben Muschko. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
We go way back, like 15 years back to the beginning of the Gradle build tool, advocating for it, and a lot of Groovy. Yeah, basically it's great to reconnect. It's great to have you back. So Ben, those days you do consultancy about basically developer toolchain.
Yeah, I would say so. Totally, yeah.
So, you know, we just finished with our keynote that was live streamed, so probably people who are watching that watched the keynote. I hope you did. And our Gradle CEO, Hans Doctor, spoke about developer toolchain observability. How this is something that is the next frontier after production observability that everybody do. And so first of all, I wanted to kind of gauge your feelings about what do you see in the industry and whether we see as Gradle, and Hans in particular spoke about, that there is not enough of that is going on. Everybody know about production observability, developer toolchain much less. Is it something that you experience as well?
Yeah, it's kind of what I see. So if we look at metrics in general, I would say, and developers and how they work, they have different personas. So oftentimes what you see is the developer just wants to focus on business logic, getting it done. And I would say they rarely look at build metrics or the build performance in general. They just want to commit their code. Is my build breaking? Do my tests run? Are they good? Am I good to go? That's pretty much it. And then you have probably like team leads or like somebody that is somewhat more passionate about builds that will actually want to look at the build scan. They will want to know if performance is degrading. Are we sticking to the latest best conventions in Maven or Gradle or whatever build tool you're using? And how can it be improved in the long term? And I would say then we have probably another layer, more on an enterprise layer, where you will want to find out, am I using JDK 17 across the board in the whole organization? Or maybe we have some sort of strategic initiative going on right now where we want to make sure that we migrate to a new stack, to a new version of something. And that is where potentially other tools may come into play as well. Like Open Rewrite could be one of those tools where you're like, okay, we don't want to do this manually. We know we need to get it done, but hey, why don't we just bring in another tool, you know?
Open Rewrite is great, and we're obviously great friends with Moderna, and what they are doing is very dear to our hearts because it is one of the most important tools in developer productivity engineering.
Absolutely.
So, when the organization wants to embark on this journey of improving developer toolchain observability, how the organization should start? What are both the low-hanging but also the juicier fruits that needs to be tackled first?
Yeah, I think if you look at the requirements of what you're looking for example, this could be performance. I mean, that's a low-hanging fruit that you can easily just improve upon, but you need to have the numbers, of course. Just looking back at maybe just Maven, for example, Hans mentioned that you can run the build in parallel. Why would you not want to do that? But it's just a simple flag that you change in a configuration file for Maven, but most folks actually don't know about it. They just don't do anything about it. Or they're just not proficient with the tool. So that's an easy way to enable that and get like a benefit right away, right out of the gate. But you would have to know about which of your projects actually have it enabled, which ones don't, and then maybe make an effort to do it globally more or less. So you need to have the metrics and the numbers in the first place, I would say. It makes sense to just measure in the first place and then optimize versus the other way around. I think that's a good approach. And whatever tool you're using, whatever makes sense to you, is up to the organization. I know some organizations build their own tooling, or they just gather metrics from different ecosystems. For example, some folks just have a look at GitHub if that's what they're using. You could bring in a build scan or Velocity in general, which gives you good insights. And then if you're looking towards production or maybe DORA metrics kind of things, you may want to look into Prometheus, Grafana, depending on what your stack, of course, looks like. So I think first thing I would do, bring in a tool or build your own tool that can measure metrics and the numbers you're looking for. Before that, I would probably define the metrics that you're looking out for.
Yeah, that was my next question. Obviously, you need to measure before you can improve anything, but measure what, right? There are measurements that are maybe trivial, how long your CI takes, and this is kind of a sorted problem in a lot of organizations, especially the CI angle. What else companies should really kind of take a look at and gain instant visibility into some problems, and maybe that will be your first step into the solutions of those problems. What would you measure first or next?
Yeah, one thing I would usually look at is performance and then your toolchain and specifically the versions that you have. This could also include dependency versions, which actually brings me to the next metric I would look at, or kind of like the umbrella that I would be looking at would be security, actually. We've talked about it quite a bit in the past, actually, shift left. And I know like some folks are not excited about the topic specifically, but we all know it's super important if you look at Log4j problems and things like that. So sooner or later it will come up. So you will want to find out what versions you're using, which of those versions for tools or dependencies have known security vulnerabilities. You will want to fix those for sure. And then when it comes down to speeding up the build in general, you will want to look for performance metrics like how long does it take to run your build? Are you using specific features in those build tools that will speed up the build? And that's oftentimes easy to measure and figure out. So those are like the starting points I would set for myself.
I would also think about security as kind of a gateway drug to observability and to tool chains, because supply chain security is on everybody's mind, with Log4j, with whatever X, Y, whatever it was. So it's kind of an easy justification, not only organizational but also mental, for everybody to start looking into dependencies in particular. And this is where we can ask questions like which dependencies are we use, are they updated or not updated, which kind of can lead to the other questions like how fast we download those dependencies, why we download those dependencies, where they come from, why we download them more than once, and all these kind of questions.
Yeah, and you will also want to have a look at your different environments. I think that's pretty important. You have your developer environment, then you have CI environment, potentially even something else that comes later. But all of those different environments have different performance characteristics, potentially. So you will want to make sure what your actual bottleneck is. Obviously, to ship software, it will be CI at some point, but even start at the beginning on the developer machine. And I've seen, like, actually, it was funny that Hans mentioned that as well. I've seen a lot of organizations now where people work from home, and it just looks different because they're on the VPN, for example, maybe in a different country than the whole organization or the headquarters is at.
For sure.
It's just different. You know?
And now it's obviously so profound when people work for everywhere with different levels of connections and speeds and what's not, and they need to connect to VPNs or what's not. And internal IT might not even know that they have a latency problem because they only have one VPN, which is across the ocean from this particular person.
Absolutely.
And again, if you don't look, you won't know.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep. So here you have it, folks. Start looking at your developer toolchain observability, stuff like, hey, are we modern enough in our stack, and are we secure enough in our stack, are easy questions to get asked and get kind of approval of whoever you need approval to take a look at, because they are obviously important enough. And this is how you get started, and from there you're hooked on developer toolchain observability metrics.
Absolutely.
Ben, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. It was
you so
great to
much.
see you. It was great to chat with you. And you all stay tuned for more episodes of Build Proportion Lab at DP Summit 2024. We are going to do a lot in those 2 days. Stay tuned.